From a secret location in Hollywood, it's the Tom Leykis Show.
We'll do it live. Do it live.
And now, here he is, Tom Leykis.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tom Leykis Show. This is where America gets together to talk about the issues you really care about. It's a different kind of a radio talk program. We're the radio talk show that is not hosted by a right-wing wacko or a convicted felon. No, I am your host. Write down our telephone number. You're going to need it. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your patronage. Get into that kind of mood. Anyway, it's just silly, right? It's just silliness. Just a goddamn radio show, for Christ's sake. What do you want? What do you want? We have Father's Day coming up. For many of our listeners, the most confusing day of the year. To quote an old politically incorrect joke, I kind of applied it to all the Tom Leykis listeners. I think it's time to update that joke. Any Tom Leykis listener, that can be a very confusing day, Father's Day. Seriously. If you don't know the joke, I'm not going to tell it to you. Because that would be wrong. Anyway, Father's Day coming up. Many of you have lost touch with your father because your father left your mother or your mother left him. And now you have spent the better part of your life hearing what a jerk, what an a-hole, what a cretin, what a creep, what a deadbeat your father is. Now, unlike many of you, I had my father in the home. All 16 years I lived at home. Yes, I left home at 16. All 16 years. By the way, Dean wanted me to know what the politically incorrect joke was, just in case I didn't know. Yes, I know what the original joke was. I do. What does Philadelphia have to do with it? That don't get me started. Next thing you know, be bringing up the NBA or something like that. Please, just stop it. Jesus. Anyway, many of you have been told that your father's a jerk, a creep, a deadbeat, a cretin, and you have lost touch with your dad, or you have bought into this idea. My dad was around in the home. Well, put it this way. He had the same home address as I had, though he frequently was not around. Let me talk to you about my relationship with my father. And my relationship with my father, to be honest with you, and, we kid around a lot, of course, on this program, because that's what we do. But being deadly serious here for a moment, my relationship with my father, which was complicated and generally lousy, was one of my prime inspirations for doing a radio program like this one. I'll tell you why. My dad lived with us in our one-bedroom apartment in the South Bronx until I was, we lived there until I was 10 years old. And when I was 9 years old, I'm just going to be upfront with you about this because it's not me we're talking about, it's him and other people like him, so certainly not something that I signed off on. But when I was 9 years old, the Supreme Court came out with a decision about busing. Have you heard about this? I know we have a lot of listeners who were not born yet when this happened, so let me explain to you what that was about, okay? The Supreme Court had decided that schools in white neighborhoods were better, generally, than schools in black neighborhoods, and they had a fix, and the fix was, we're going to take the kids in white neighborhoods and put them on school buses, and we're going to take them to the schools in the black neighborhoods. And then we're going to take the kids in the black neighborhoods and take them to the schools in the white neighborhoods. And hopefully after years of doing that, the schools in the black neighborhoods will improve and the schools in the white neighborhoods won't they'll be the beneficiary of this kind of gap. So when I was 9 years old, my father decided, that's it, we're not staying here for this. And so he proceeded to buy a house he could not afford 50 miles outside the city. I mean, my goodness, how many of you recently, before the recent foreclosure binge, how many of you bought a house 50 miles or more outside the city for whatever reason you had? Well, this was his reason back then. He did not want to see me, in the case of living in the Bronx, he did not want to see me bus to a school in Harlem. That was his biggest fear. So rather than, you know, taking a wait-and-see attitude and figuring out if this was really going to play out the way they said it was, he bought a house in the suburbs, and we all moved to the suburbs, 50 miles away from the city. And, of course, when we moved 50 miles from New York City, his job didn't move, so he then had to commute 50 miles each way to work every day. How many of you listening right now in your car on that kind of a commute, like my dad was? So we went from being all together in the apartment. By the way, the apartment building where I grew up, I'll tell you the address, 1504 Sheridan Avenue in the Bronx. Go ahead, do Google Earth on it, whatever you want to do. Check out the real estate records, whatever. Check out the archives of the New York Daily News. 1504 Sheridan Avenue is the most cited apartment building with the most health department violations of any apartment building in all of New York City. It is the absolute worst of the worst. And that's where I grew up, at 1504 Sheridan Avenue, apartment 3H. That's where I was. It was a dump. But when we lived in that apartment together, it was $80 a month. It was one bedroom. My 3 siblings shared the bedroom with me, and my parents slept in a Castro convertible in the living room. Things were a lot better than when we moved 50 miles away. Because when we moved 50 miles away, my dad suddenly was a commuter. And so instead of, leaving for work at 8 in the morning, taking the subway and being to work by 9, my dad had to join a carpool, because even then he didn't want to pay whatever the cost of gasoline was at that time. And he had to get up in the morning at about 4:45 so he could leave by 6. And then he would have to commute an average of 2.5 hours each way every day to go to and from work. So if he worked a normal 8:30 to 5 day, or 8:30 to 4:30, which I think were his hours at the time, he would leave the house at 6 and come home at 7. He would be gone from the house for 13 hours every day. And that was on a normal day, because my dad was the head of the union. So many nights he had to stay after work negotiating a union contract. He was the head of the union at the newspaper guild. He was at the New York Post. And so he would have to work late at night. So sometimes he wouldn't get home at 7. Sometimes he'd get home at 8 or 9 or 10. So imagine my dad getting up at 4:45 a.m., out the door by 6, home 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And when he got home, he was cranky. Very cranky. And I once said to him at age 12, I said, I'd rather be living in that crappy apartment we were living in than to have you out of the house all the time and cranky. And, of course, he took a swipe at me because he was cranky. My relationship with my dad went downhill the minute we moved to this house. The minute we moved to the middle of the burbs. I was 10, 11, 12 years old. I wasn't old enough to drive. Nobody lived near me. We lived in this neighborhood of tract homes. everybody I went to school with lived at least a mile away from where I lived, and I couldn't drive, so I'd have to walk or ride a bicycle just to see my friends. I was miserable living there, and my relationship with my dad deteriorated. And there I was through my teenage years, the ones that I did live at home, where I couldn't talk to my dad about anything. He was never around. I never learned how to do things, and I've talked about this on the air previously. I never learned how to do guy things like play poker. I had to find out about Playboy magazine from my friend Henry Strite, who had a rolled-up copy in his newspaper that he would bring to school. That's how I first saw Playboy when I was 12. Later, I found my dad's porn stash when I was about 14. My dad was into the hardcore stuff. He read Screw magazine, and he had that up in his closet. Screw. Remember Screw magazine? My dad read Screw. I was so thrilled to meet Al Goldstein, the publisher of Screw, and tell him, you know, my dad used to hide your magazines in his closet all the time. Al was proud. But the bottom line was that I thought I had a close relationship with my dad when I was a younger kid, and instead, as time went on, because I was a teenager, because he wasn't around, because he was cranky and complaining all the time, you know, we just stopped essentially talking. And at 16, I just said, that's it, I'm out. I left home. And all those years between age 16 and age, how old was I when he died? 39, something like that. We had kind of a complicated relationship. And I tell you about this because remembering not having a dad around, remembering when my dad was around that I got the worst of him as we approach Father's Day, I think about you guys who don't even know your father. See, I knew my dad, and he treated me like crap. And yet, it was a complicated relationship because I wanted him to like me. I wanted him to approve of me. I wanted him to love me. I did everything I could. I stood on my head to get him to like me. And the more I did that, the more he didn't approve. Up to and including what I wanted to be when I grew up, which was a radio personality. He didn't want me doing that. He tried to thwart my dream. We fought about everything. And it never really got much better. I tell you this story because as we approach Father's Day, some of you didn't even have the chance to know your dad. By the way, the other siblings in my family, they all got along great with my dad. My dad mellowed out over time, and he became a grandfather, and he loved that. And, you know, the word on the street about my dad is that he was way easier to get along with down the line later on, but I was already gone by that time. That was the deal. I don't want to just diss my dad completely because, again, I spent most of my time trying to get him to like me. That was my deal. And I talk to you guys now who haven't spent time with your dad because your mom has told you your dad is a jerk. You know what? Your dad probably is a jerk. And you know what? You need to learn how to be more like him. Because as I have found with many of you boys who were raised by mommy, many of you don't know how to be a jerk, and that's why you can't get chicks. Now, you may think I'm joking, but I'm not. I'm being very serious right now. I want to encourage you to find your dad for Father's Day, no matter what you've been told about him. You may have to do some searching. You may have to pay, like, you know, Intellius or USSearch.com or something to find him. I want you to find him. And I want you to have a conversation with him. I want you to find out what he knows that you don't. Because the one thing your mom never told you is as much of a jerk as he is, as much of a deadbeat as your dad is, as much of a creep as he is, that's what turned your mom on. That's what your mom wanted to sleep with. I mean, hasn't the light bulb gone off over your head yet? Well, your mom's busy telling you not to be a jerk like your dad. Why did your mom have sex with a guy like that? And the answer is because he's a jerk, because he's a deadbeat, because he's unreliable, because he can be a creep. And if your mom and dad split up, you haven't been in a position to ask your dad how to be the same kind of creep and pick up chicks. What a tragedy that is. Seriously speaking. I'm not kidding about this, and I'm not just saying this as a radio bit. I mean this. I want you to find your dad this Father's Day. I want you to find him. I want you to have a beer with him. If your dad is a player, I want you to go out with him, and I want you to find out what he knows, because I'm telling you, if you have had a hard time connecting with women, your dad holds the key. He is the key. And I'd like to get your reaction to this. I'd like to find out if you think I'm wrong, if you take me seriously, if you'll actually consider doing this. Make the plan, buy the plane ticket, fly him where you are, you fly where he is, see his apartment, see his girlfriend or friends, see how he operates. Figure out what it was that your mom saw in him, because I'm telling you, the guy had something that made your mom want to rip her own clothes off and say, do me. So no matter what she's saying about him now, at one time, that was the hottest guy on the planet. So hot, she not only wanted to have sex with him, she wanted to have a baby with him. You. Your mom's a hypocrite now telling you what a jerk he is, because if he's such a jerk, why did she have sex with the guy? Why did she have a baby with the guy, or more than one? That's why I'm encouraging you this Father's Day to find your father. If you haven't seen him or heard from him in a long time, don't let anything that's happened in the past stop you. Go find him. Get to know him. See what he has to offer. Does this make sense to you?
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. Tom. 1-800-5800-866.
Back in high school, used to have a girlfriend. First day I heard you, dumped the bitch the next day.
I love that.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
It's the Tom Leykis Show. The pre-Father's Day edition of the Tom Leykis Show. I am encouraging you to get to know your dad, especially if your mom won't speak to him. Christina on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Tom Leykis.
Yes.
What the hell are you teaching people? That is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard in my life.
Why would you say that?
Because you went on this whole sob story thing. You know, I haven't listened to you for about a year, so then I said, let me tune you back on, see how you're doing. Then I was like all heartbroken about what you were saying about your father.
Yeah.
And then you come out with talking about that you think people should contact their loser fathers and get tips.
We don't know. We don't know if these guys are losers. We know that that's what Mom says. We don't know if that's true.
No. You know they're losers.
We don't know they're losers. We do not know that.
You said your father is, if your father's a deadbeat, your mother's telling you your father's a deadbeat, and the truth is, guys, he probably is.
Why do you say that?
Take advice from them.
Why do you say that?
Because that's idiotic. You know what type of men would say that? That means that you just don't have no self-esteem.
I've got plenty of self-esteem. In fact, I've got super high self-esteem.
You know what it is?
You know how I know I have super high self-esteem? Because I have the guts to stand here before millions and millions of people every day and do this job. That's right.
Bitter. And the more I
really?
the more I realize you got some serious issues.
Oh, I have I? Why do you tune in if you feel that way?
No, I don't. I told you. I was browsing through. I thought you changed your
Nothing.
tone.
There's no reason for you to ever tune in. You know what? If you don't like it, don't listen.
Verified to me.
I verified nothing to you.
About 20%.
Clearly, you've had problems with men in the past. Your problem is that you've had problems with men in the past, and you are a bitter old bitch.
No, I'm not.
Yes.
No, I'm not.
Clearly you are.
No, I'm not.
Oh, clearly you are.
I think you're bitter, and I think you're pathetic.
I'm not the least bit bitter. In fact, it takes one to know one, dear. It takes one to know one.
And that's
by the way, and you lied about your age to get on the air, too.
No, I didn't.
Sure you did.
How old did I say I was?
Dean says you said you were 32 years old.
And how old am I?
You were 32 years old 20 years ago.
Who? Okay.
You.
Keep telling yourself that.
Believe me, darling.
You know what? You wish you were
There is no way you're 32 years old. No way.
You shrink. You know what your problem is? You're bitter because you were probably...
Darling, you've said it 17 times. You have to, if you want to stay on the air, you have to have new material.
I don't need new material. I told you.
Yeah, you do. See, in my world, you can't just keep doing that. You know, you may be able to do that to your poor husband and beat the crap out of him, but you can't do it to me. 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. Let's say hello here to Mario on the Tom Leykis Show.
Hey, Tom, how's it going?
It's going okay.
Seems like we've all got issues. You ain't the only one.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, it's like I was telling the gentleman I was speaking to earlier, I wanted to comment on what you were saying. I met my father, didn't meet him until I was 11. You know, my mom never talked bad about him. Always told me that your father's your father, and we have our reasons why we're not together. And when I was 11, he came around, you know, everything was nice. You know, took me, enrolled me in karate classes, bought me my first pair of roller skates and whatnot. But, you know, I mean, he wasn't the ideal father that I had pictured, you know. I said, I never met my dad in 11 years. He came back looking for me. I had this whole idea of what I expected him to be. And now that I'm older, I realize that was my fault for putting such high expectations on the man.
Yeah, what were you expecting?
Exactly. So, you know, as I got older, I held resentment towards him, and then when I turned 21, I went looking for him, you know, and we did the thing when we had our beers, you know, we hashed out whatever differences we had, and I mean, the whole time I knew that he was a ladies' man. That wasn't a secret. You know, I mean, and he taught me some things, and, you know, he told me that this is the way you treat women, and some women want to be treated this way, and some women want to be treated another way. And you just got to learn how to read the signals that they give you.
It's absolutely true.
So, you know, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, as far as meeting your father and making your mind up for yourself, as far as whether you want to continue a relationship with them or not, or what you want to learn from the man, because, I mean, everybody has something to offer. If they're a deadbeat, I mean, even deadbeats have something to offer. Everybody in your life is there to teach you something. Doesn't mean they're perfect. No one, you know what I mean, I don't have holes in my palm. I'm far from perfect. So, you know what I mean, you learn what you can from people.
Well, that's absolutely right. And I'm just saying to guys, don't take your mom's word that your dad was a completely worthless individual, completely useless. Don't do it, because it's entirely possible your dad is exactly who you need to know. 1-800-5800-TOM, that's our telephone number. Let's say hello to Ken on the Tom Leykis Show.
Hello, Tom. How are you this evening?
Great.
Excellent. Good to hear that. I've been listening to you on and off for a couple years, first time calling in, and I wanted to call with agreement with your comments. I took the opportunity while my father was alive, he passed on a few years ago, to sit down with him, have a glass of scotch in his favorite jazz club, watch him operate, learn from the man, and I'll tell you, my life's richer for it, and I encourage anybody who's had a fall, their mother fed them about their father, and I heard a belly full of it. Go out and make your own decisions, and do it now, do it immediately, because you never know when your father's going to be taken away from you. My dad died in a car accident when he was 62 years old. He was there. I had a great phone call with him, and the next day he was gone. He was out of our lives forever. So I encourage everybody, listen to our father here on the radio, Tom Leykis, and, you know, connect with your old man. There's many lessons and much richness there.
I learned it the hard way. You know, I learned it the hard way, and I want guys to get what they can get from their dads. I wish I could have gotten more from my dad, but it just wasn't possible. 1-800-5800-TOM. Here's JV on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Tom, good evening. How are you doing, man? It's beautiful to hear from you. It is a beautiful subject. You're reaching out there to everybody, and I got to tell everybody, you are absolutely right. Because you know what? I've been a child child of a single-parent home, which was my mother raising me my whole life. And you know what? That religious, freaky bitch was the whole reason my life just got ruined, destroyed, turned upside down, and she made it seem like everything was all right. And you know what? I hope if she's listening, I hope she dies and turns around in her grave, because I met my father 4 years ago. Okay, and you know what? It wasn't so much him, because he was the deadbeat that she said he was, but when I met his brother, my uncle, he's the one who changed my life around. It was a great blessing. He taught me how to be a player. He taught me how to, stop falling for women, because I was getting in trouble. I was getting locked up because over, throwing tizzy fits. Like, I had all these emotions that my mother put in my head that didn't belong there. But when through my father, I met my uncle, and he just changed my whole life around. His philosophy is like very much in line with your philosophy. I'd say 95%. And you know what? It's funny, dude. My ex-wife is listening right now, because she just tried to call me on the phone when I'm on the phone with you and tried to tell me that, oh, you need to be listening to Tom Leykis show right now, because I turned her on to your show. And it's the whole reason that I ran into my uncle, that I divorced that god-awful bitch. And you know what? I've been happier ever since. I freaking get more ass than a toilet seat, dude. It's like ridiculous, dog. I got the game down packed. My uncle is like, he's been with over 3,000 women. My dad can't even vouch for that. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
My dad, my uncle's been with over 3,000 women in his lifetime. He's a big-time player. My dad, he can even use a witness to that. And you know what? Because I finally reached out there and I went towards looking for my father, which I'm glad I did, which my mother told me not to do, because he's scum of the earth and this and that. It just so happens that she's 10 times scummier than he ever will be, and she's the one that kept me from him. He tried to seek me out, but because he came from Mexico, and because, he didn't have papers, he didn't have a legit job, she took me away. He couldn't get child support. He didn't know how to deal with lawyers. He didn't know how things worked in this country. She used that against him, I come to find out, and took me away from him and kept me from him. And I even found out from my uncle, it's true. And, all those men out there, you guys got to stop. Don't listen to your mothers. Listen to Tom. Trust me. If you guys are men, if you got any ounce of manhood, listen to Tom, dude. Go seek him out. Go find the real answers to your life. Because you know what? Everything I've learned from my uncle. He taught me this. And he's old school Mexican from Sinaloa. And I love you, Tío Samuel Corona. I love you. And you know what? He taught me a long time ago. He said, everything a woman says, everything a woman does. Don't ever believe it. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad. If it's to your benefit or not, don't believe it. Just do what you got to do with her, and when you're done, get rid of her and move on to the next one. And if you get some more in the meanwhile, good. That's the whole objective.
That's what you needed to know.
Exactly, dude. And you know what? My mother didn't want me to know that. Because of her, dude, I swear to God, because of her, I had this horrible marriage experience, with this ex-wife from hell who's right now listening, and I'm going to hear it later, but I really don't care. But because of my mother, I had the horrible marriage. I got out of it because of my deal. He taught me how to be a player, and you know what? Now, I know him. I'm in touch with his family, and I couldn't feel more whole than I do now as a human being. So all those men out there, you guys are whooped on these like worthless women, dude. You guys got to wake up. And you guys need to start learning how to be a man. And that's the first thing is taking advice from a man, a real man. I'm not talking about, like you say, a pussy whip man. I'm talking about a real man, who knows how to play the game.
The pussy whip man is still married to your mom. The real man is out there getting it everywhere he can get it.
Exactly. You know what? And you know what? My mom, ever since I talked to my dad, me and my mom's relationship has gone to hell. And I could care less. I'm more happier now than I've ever been in my whole life. Life makes sense now. It's like a whole universe has been waking up. And like that bitch who called earlier, who tried to say some negative things to you, the hell with you, lady. You know what, Tom? That was like my mother. And on top of that, they try and throw religion into this garbage and all this stuff. That's the worst thing you could do to a kid, is be a single mother, religious, and raising a boy. That's the worst thing you could do, because you know what? You're going to mess his life up with alimony, child support. He's going to have his whole life taken from him from a bitch like you. And you know what? If you do that to your sons, I'm telling all you women out there right now, if you do that to your sons, do not say you love that boy. You do not love him. You hate men, and because your hate for men, because you got used by a man and thrown and dumped like the scum you are, you're going to take it out on that child's life. And you know what? What you're doing is wrong. Do you understand that? I'm going to tell them all right now. What you're doing is wrong. What you're putting in that child's head, telling him to get married and have kids and all this garbage because you want to have grandkids and you want him to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? What you're doing is wrong. What you're doing to someone else's life is wrong, and karma comes back.
JV, you make a lot of sense.
And you know what, Tom? You make even more sense, dude. And I tell my Theo, I tell everybody to listen to you, dog. God bless you. I love you. I swear to God, dude. And you're the greatest. And keep preaching the truth, dog. To hell with all these fakers. To hell with all these women. and all these man haters and all this other garbage, that's their insecurities. That's their problem, which my Theo taught me. He taught me all about that stuff. And, dude, that's what I suffered for before, but I don't anymore. I'm a whole new man. It's like I've been born again without being religious.
I am so proud of you, JV.
Tom Leykis. 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866.
I'm not paying anybody's student loans off. I'm not paying anybody's car payments. I'm not helping anybody pay the mortgage on their grandmother's house. I'm not doing it.
Damn straight, Tom. Preach it.
It's the Tom Leykis Show.
It's the Tom Leykis Show coming to you from Hollywood. At 1-800-5800-TOM. That's our telephone number. It's our pre-Father's Day edition, and I'm encouraging you boys to go get to know your dad while you can. Find out what he knew about picking up chicks that your mom never told you. Remember, your mom was one of the chicks he picked up. Never forget that. Andy on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
How you doing, Tom?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Hey, you know what? You kind of made me realize something, man. My sisters, I'm the youngest of 5, and my sisters always told me about how my dad was like a really big player. I'm talking like he had it down, you know. They called him a certain name in Spanish. His name was Reyes, you know. And that's not, I know that's kind of like a last name thing, but they called him that because they meant he was like the king of women, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I do all right myself, you know. Actually, I do pretty good, actually, thanks to you, you know. And
well, because I've been filling in for your dad here. I'm the dad you never had.
Yeah, you make a good point there, man. You know, I was the nice guy, you know, back in the day, by the way. You know, that's at the door, at the window. You know?
Boy.
You know? But, you know, I never really thought of sitting down with him and talking with him about what's up. You know, my dad he's a very soft-spoken man. He doesn't really say much, you know. I have a pretty decent relationship with him. We don't really fight, you know. He doesn't say much. He's a very quiet dude, but somehow he was just the biggest player. And when my sisters were like in high school, middle school, around there, he used to take them to school, drop them off. And even, you know, all the chicks would be like, hey, who's that? You know, that's my dad. And every girl thought my dad was just the hottest guy. You know, they had that little mystery to him. And, you know, I'm gonna sit him down one day and just have a nice little chat with him, you know. It's something I never thought of doing, you know. Thanks for making me kind of wake up to that.
And what did your mom tell you about your dad?
Well, to be honest, I don't really know much about their past. I just know that they met at a party and stuff like that.
No, but I mean, did she say she had no opinion about him, or did she say he was a jerk? What did she say about him?
She really doesn't say much about him. My mom's not the kind of person I'd say he's a jerk, he's a deadbeat. You know, he always took care of his family. But she does know that he is a big jerk and he does jerky things. You know, he's not a bad person. You know, she's not the kind of badmouth anybody. But, you know, my dad is a very macho guy, you know, that typical jerk, you can say. To this day, you know, women look at him and he doesn't really, I don't really see any game per se, you know. But just the way he is, you know, just has that tough guy attitude, very soft-spoken. And he's just the man. And I never thought of, you know, just sitting down and talking with him, man. It's like, you know, I'm gonna do that maybe tonight, you know.
It's time to do it.
It is time, dude. But also thanks to you, man. You made me up my game a whole bunch. Too bad we're not getting you down here in San Diego.
Yeah, well, they needed a radio station with a 1 share. The station wasn't low rated enough when we were on it. They needed to get something that would rate even lower, so they changed the format.
Well, now it's some radio station with like classic rock, and I was devastated when I just heard music the whole day, and I was wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Because I think it was the following week after you had come down here to do a live show from Cane's, and it was the following week when you guys were cut off.
I was actually about a month or two later, but we knew at that time that was the likely outcome.
Wow. I just don't get it, man. I don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting cut off everywhere. and you give them some pretty good advice. And
well, the Internet is the great equalizer, and people are getting our show whether the man likes it or not.
I'm catching down here in San Diego on the radio. We get pretty good reception around the Oceanside, Carlsbad area. So I'm listening on the radio right now with you. But
sounds good to me. I got to run, Andy, but I thank you for that. That's a great call. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. Ulysses on the Tom Leykis show. Hello.
How are you, Tom?
Great.
Hey, first time I call in, I disagree a lot of points of view that you're saying. I mean, you guys are treating women like they're just a piece of meat, and they're not. I mean, that's what's wrong with society nowadays, and it's decaying. You're fomenting all this.
Well, they're a piece of meat, but they're a piece of meat that serves a purpose, and that is, it's an ejaculative purpose.
I mean, I guess, but, I mean, there's more to it than just that. I mean, a woman is it's a person. I mean, in the way these people call in and say, yeah, we.
Well, then why do these persons get involved with jerks?
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. You got
so, because you see, these women get no sympathy from me when they have sex with jerks and have babies with them. Then later on, complain that the guys are jerks.
Well, then they're not really totally in control of their own personal, I guess.
Well, the real truth is that the jerks that they had sex with, the jerks they procreated with, that's what women are attracted to. So I'm going to say this sentence and you're not going to stop me. My boys need to learn how to become jerks like that.
Not real women. Not a real woman. A real woman will not take.
Oh, come on. A real woman is a fat woman, is a butterface.
No.
Yes. Yes. That's what people call real women. Oh, with real breasts. Yeah, that's what fat women have. Real breasts. They don't need implants.
I've been working in the architecture firm and in that atmosphere for over 12 years, and I met intelligent women with great bodies, and they don't like jerks like these. Like these guys that call up, a lot of them are good. I think they're losers.
Well, you know what? People's moms were with jerks, and that's why mom tells you your dad was a jerk.
My mom doesn't say that because I have a pretty
well,
good
those whose moms say that, I say go meet the jerk and find out what he knows.
I do agree that the point of today, it is right not to totally, disconnect from where you come from. I agree with that because you need to know and understand where you come from and you make your own decision. I agree with you in that aspect. But some of these guys that call up and say, now I'm like this and I treat women like this and I'm like this guy that called two calls before, the guy, now I'm a big-time player and
right.
I'm enjoying life.
What's wrong with being a big-time player? What's wrong with that?
I guess, I don't know.
I'm a big-time player. What's wrong with it?
I guess if you're single, that's fine. But, I mean, there's more to life than that.
Well, guess what? I frankly, I think getting married is not what you're calling more to life. I think it's something that men should be avoiding.
Well, like certain men, not all men. Because, I mean, I'm happily married. I got 4 kids. I love my wife.
Well, you're a very lucky man. But you know what? Somebody will win the big spin this weekend. It's just not likely to be me. The fact that you're a lucky man doesn't mean most men are going to be that lucky. And we know that's true because half of all marriages end in divorce.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But that's the way it is. And since that's the way it is, here's one way to avoid divorce. Don't get married.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you with that. I'm with you with that. You really got to know where you're stepping, I guess. And
right.
If you're ready to commit in a marriage, you really have to be 100% sure.
Well, which you never can be. And so I believe in being a player. Being a player has served me well, and it's served well a lot of the guys who've called in. And hopefully this Father's Day, our boys will reach out to their dads. If your dad lives with your mom, seeing your dad on Father's Day is easy and no big deal. I want the guys who haven't seen their dads, the guys who have been told that dad is a jerk, dad is a creep, dad is a pig, to seek him out, find out what he knows. He's probably a better player than anybody you've ever met before.
The Tom Leykis Show.